Hey everybody, Danielle Egnew here. Welcome to inPsight Radio. I'm so excited to get this podcast up and running. It's been something I've been preparing for the last year, and I am so excited to have everybody here. So hi! This is fascinating and fabulous, and what a tremendous time for all of us to get together in the world right now and share messages of consciousness. I mean, seriously, have you been paying attention to the news the last 2 years? That is a complete and total trip, isn't it? I mean, just when you think you've seen every single thing you could possibly see in this world, 2017 happened. And what an incredible rodeo of consciousness 2017 was. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. If you work in the realm of spiritual physics, which I do, you have the opportunity to see some things happen that you never even thought you would see in your lifetime. Timelines birthed right in front of your eyes, different dimensions coming in and taking over a predominant consciousness dimension. I mean, this was serious sci-fi weirdness in 2017. And many of us have experienced being steeled up because of this. You know, there has been so many people lately who talk about being depressed and done in by 2017. Listen, guys, come on now. I understand that we can get a little roughed around the edges when our worldview is not met by leadership and when we see crazy unkindness exploding all over everything. I get it. I'm human. I'm Italian and a water sign. I'm a Pisces with the Leo moon and a Cancer rising. Let me tell you about emotional. So I work really hard within myself to make sure that I can keep those emotions in check. And it's not because I find that emotionality is bad. That's ridiculous. Emotionality is how the human psyche and flesh speaks to the spirit. We speak through a chemical language of emotionality. So all of that is crazy super important. The reason I prefer to keep my bubble between the lines is because it is best on my system. It is best on my adrenals, on my endocrine system, on my pulmonary system. You know, when we get all wound up because of stuff that's going on crazily in the news, we really are looking at reflections of what's going on in ourselves. And for many people, Donald Trump being elected was a salvation for them because he shares their worldview. For many people, Donald Trump being elected was the end of their world lens because he could not have been more polar in his worldview to a lot of people out there. And when I wrote a blog back in 2016 called Donald Trump is the best thing that's ever happened to the United States of America, I got a lot of hate mail because people didn't even read the blog, you guys. This is how touchy we are, right? That whole blog was about the fact that Mr. Trump is bringing in a very polarized representation of an old world consciousness, which we in 2018 have now gone past. We've evolved past that consciousness, which is why this looks so weird with the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. I mean, it's literally like looking into some old world manifesto and just thinking, what the hell was that? Did we really treat each other like whacking each other on the butt and raping each other was the way to get a job in Hollywood? Well, let me tell you something. I work in media. Yes, I'm a psychic. Yes, I'm an angelic channel. Yes, I'm a medium. And I do that in media. And even though I have been an out gay woman since 1992, that does not stop the outdated, imbalanced patriarchal from giving it a shot and seeing where they can go with you. And I always felt so bad for these guys. God, oh my God. It was just painful. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you coming on to me, man? I mean, this is just a wall of slate rejection for you. I'm not sure what that's about. Yet think about the consciousness that's surrounding this outmoded masculine. And I say outmoded because the divine masculine is amazing. I mean, every human being, guys, I don't care, even a person who does not consider themselves gender oriented in any way, every human being has masculine and feminine chi, or those energies of yin and yang, running through them. That's just the way it is to be alive in the world, okay? So when you have these opportunities to engage the masculine and feminine chi, and you're a guy who has been socialized in those old world 20th century dynamics, and for those of you who were raised in the 20th century before the year 2000 hit, remember that? I mean, our guys were supposed to be John Wayne and Captain Kirk and really rough and tumble and out there. And I'm not saying the masculine does not crave rough and tumble. What I'm saying is that we socialized an entire 4 or 5 generations of Americans to be hyper feminine and hyper masculine, and for all intents and purposes to really ignore the other balanced sets of chi in the body. And that's whack, is what that is. I mean, that turns the United States of America many generations later into polarized cray-crayville, where everybody's just angry and women are feeling unheard and men are feeling unsupported and women are feeling unsupported and men are feeling unheard. And we turn into a giant vat of whining victimization. And this is really what we saw in that election in 2016. And I came out in 2016, in the very early part of 2017, attempting to explain what we were looking at in consciousness. And people just flat out could not handle that overall. People were frightened. They bought into the media model of polarization. They really believed that just because Donald Trump was elected, all of America was going to go to heck in a handbasket. I mean, we punched the button of panic back in 2016, 2017. And so I received the message from the universe, hey, sister, dial back the teachings right now because people just need to soak in their freak out. And that's really true. I did put out a ton of blogs during that time and videos and whatnot, yet people were really just reeling with the emotionality of what it meant to have an individual elected to the presidency that was such an unfiltered, polarizing figure. And again, for some people out there in the United States, gang, that unfiltered, polarizing figure was Jesus. He was the savior. He was going to come in and put America back right where it needs to be. And that was not particularly the consciousness I shared or the lens I shared. I was more looking at that going, wow, we are really getting our butts handed to us in the consciousness department, aren't we? And between that and being back in 2016 and looking through the ethers and realizing that we had so much election meddling from Russia, which now Mueller is coming out with all this documentation about how in-depth this meddling was. And he hasn't even gotten yet to the meddling of voter districts. And we're going to see that too coming up, gang. We're going to be seeing all kinds of Russian meddling in voter districts and voter lists. And that affects who went to the polls. Now, listen, I am not blaming Russia for the election results. Okay, I want this super clear. Yes, I do tend to vote down a progressive landslide most of the time, pretty much all of the time. Yet I will tell you, I don't blame Russia for Hillary Clinton not winning. Are you kidding me? I blame the gullible American public. We're all just getting fat on our pizza and watching our Netflix binge watch of The Flash. And not researching any of these candidates and not looking into anything and checking our phones for the Comey buzz phrase of Hillary's still under investigation. Well, I'm not even going to read that article. But I, as an American, I'm going to look at that and go, yep, I always knew she was a weirdo. And say, well, we need something different. So let's vote for Trump. And unlike many of the people in my field, many of the people that share, if you even want to call it a political lens, which quite frankly, I think the term political lens is outmoded. I think that's an old world term that needs to die. I do. I think that Republican and Democrat, those labels are old world labels and they need to die because what we're looking at is a shift in consciousness. So when Donald Trump was elected, I was too busy feeling the rip in timelines that was created by that phenomenon. And I mean, he's just a dude, man. He's like somebody's weird old mobster uncle who became president. It's a loudmouth and he's just doing his thing in there. He's not what really the issue is, although he is certainly bringing issues forward. Russia didn't get Trump elected. American apathy got Trump elected. And even that apathy down to the folks who were voting for him and saying, we've not been listened to. We've been in our hidey holes for 50 years. This crazy black president who made gays be equal in the eyes of marriage. I mean, what the hell happened to our America? That is really the perspective of a lot of people in America. I wouldn't say it's predominant, but there's a lot of people who feel that way. So here comes Donald Trump. Okay, here he comes. And he represents everything we haven't talked about. And this guy gets elected with the help of a nation that we had sanctions against because they didn't want Hillary in there because she was going to bring down the hammer on Russia and they weren't too happy about it. And they knew that we as Americans, I mean, come on, you guys, we have to be accountable for some of our American naivete, right? I'm not saying this stuff to beat us up, guys. I'm not. I'm a realist. Believe it or not, I'm a huge realist. I'm a psychic. I'm a medium. I'm an angelic channel. That is all true. I'm a metaphysician. I'm a pastor. That is all true. I'm also a Montanan and I'm a realist. And we have got to be accountable, myself included. I have American naivete. Sometimes I have American apathy. Sometimes I get done with my day and I'm super tired and I just want to go home and binge watch Game of Thrones back seasons on Blu-ray and not deal with the world. You guys, I'm that way too. So come on, I'm not casting judgment here. I'm saying this whole entire year of 2017 was all about shaking us awake. All of us. Myself included. Heck, I'm over there living in the happy bubble with unicorns and people who believe that the world should all be full of love and happiness. And here we have this election that's tweaked through the emotional laziness of America. So we're not checking our headlines. We're not checking if it's fake news. That's due to the naivete of America. And that naivete has been programmed into us since the 1940s and 50s through television. Through our media, you guys. Listen to this. When we look back, the American people were very hard to manipulate prior to media because we were not hearing the unified message of one voice all at one time prior to radio, prior to TV, and then TV. My God, let's talk about TV a minute. Okay, let's talk. I love this. I am having so much fun with this podcast, and it is only the first episode, and we're only like barely 13 minutes in, and I am having a blast. So I hope you are all having a blast with me. When we look at where we are in the world, guys, it's not one thing, and it's not the Republicans and Democrats, and it's not just our naivete, or it's not our emotional apathy in America. It's a sandwich of many things that the dimension of 2017 in its chaos and rage shook us out of because it was such a freak show. Wow. I mean, even for me, guys, I talk to aliens. I talk to elementals. I see time frames that haven't even come into reality yet. Okay. And I was completely wigged by the dimensional energies of 2017. That is how unique it was to our experience. And in order to understand that, we've got to understand how programmable we are as an American public. And listen, guys, this is not just me whacking on Americans or whacking on Republicans or whacking on Democrats. Look, we've got a lot of corrupt Democrats that have been entrenched in a very defunct system for a long time. Corruption is not a political affiliation. It's a human condition that reflects fear, and oftentimes it reflects people being worn down over a long time. People just cave in, man, They just cave in. So when we talk about the American public being somebody who is, we're going to talk about the American public as an individual. And every individual has a brain. I know that there are those of us that would argue that others don't, and those others would probably argue that we don't have a brain. Yet every individual has a brain. And that brain is an electromagnetic organ. And those thoughts in that brain are called synapses, and they are little bitty, teensy-weensy electrical bursts between two non-touching points. And it makes an arc of electricity in the mind. And that's how we literally create a thought from one section to the next section. We are creating that thought that way. Now, here's the story, Morning Glory. When TVs first came out, and some of you will have no reference for this, I'm going to be 49 years old very, very shortly here. And so as 49-year-old person, I remember the television sets that had the great big magnet in back of the tube that created the picture. And in original TV sets, they told kids in the 50s, do not sit right up in front of the TV and stare at it. It'll mess up your eyes. It messes up the brain. And there was actual medical documentation that backed that up. Well, why did it mess people's brains up? Well, because the brain is an electromagnetic organ, and in the back of that giant television tube was a giant magnet. So that television was broadcasting, get this, huge electromagnetic waves that it was pulling those broadcast waves, those analog waves out of the air, because we had rabbit ear TV, remember that? And it pulled those waves down, converted them into electromagnetic energy that pulsed, because I don't know if you know this or not, but the old TVs, and even the new TVs, yet I think the new TVs have a little different technology with this. I'm not quite exactly sure. But I can tell you the old TVs had what was called, and the new, I guess the new screens do also, yet this was very prominent and noticeable in the old TVs, had what was called interlacing. Now, why am I going into all this technical detail, you guys? I'm going into this detail so you can understand how generations of Americans were literally, hear me on this, literally programmed. Their minds were augmented and literally programmed by sitting in front of a television set. Not just ideologically, not from what they were seeing, but biologically, they were programmed, and here's how. So the brain is this electromagnetic organ. You've got this television that's broadcasting in what's called interlacing. What that means is there's a little bitty strip of the picture that goes right to left on the screen, and then a little bitty strip of the picture that's built underneath of that goes left to right, kind of like painting back and forth on the screen all the way down. And this is happening really super fast. So what we're seeing is movement on the TV screen, but if you break that down, you have an upper field and a lower field of these stripes going backwards and forwards across the screen. Now it's happening really, really quickly. What does that do? Well, that is a strobing effect. That is a strobing effect on our old vacuum tube, electromagnetically generated and powered television sets. What does a strobing effect do to the brain? A strobing effect on the brain creates a theta wave pattern or a hypnotic state. If you've ever done EMDR therapy or tapping therapy, sometimes in that therapy, they will use a light that's strobing, and it allows the mind to go left, right hemisphere, and it allows the mind to relax and get into a theta wave state. Theta waves in the brain are our meditative waves. Beta waves are our conversational, laugh it out, go eat a pizza and have a beer with a friend waves in the brain. Alpha waves are when we're really, really, really aggravated and angry. And delta waves are the slowest brainwave pattern possible, and those delta waves come into play when we're asleep. So theta waves are our meditation state, and we are very impressionable in a meditative state because the brain is set on 100% receive. All we're doing is just receiving from that standpoint. And what's fantastic about the receiving end of that is that it allows our brain to just kind of rest and idle. However, if you're sitting in front of an old school vacuum tube television with a giant magnet in back with a lot of electricity running through it to create this strobing effect, literally you have a huge electromagnetic field and magnetic field around that television that is strobing at you while it's telling you, buy peanut butter, buy war bonds, join the army. Women, you're not of any value unless you look young. young and you hike your boobs up to look like a bullet in a bra. Man, she won't love you unless you buy her $1 million ring. And here we literally programmed all of America with consumerism at a base level whose strobing electromagnetic field actually affected, are you hearing me, guys and gals, actually affected the way that our brain mapped those synapses. Are you getting the full picture here? This is heavy-duty brainwashing stuff, folks. Now, I'm not convinced, I don't know if the medical communities or the psychological communities knew enough about the brain back then to know that that was happening. Perhaps they did. Psychological warfare is an energetic warfare where you attack brainwaves is outlawed in the Geneva Convention as far as the rules of war, which are inane, the rules of war. Here's a rule for war. How about we don't have it? There's a good rule for war, rules for war. That is unbelievably stupid, in my opinion. Wow. Anyway, so when I talk about the American public being programmed, we literally were programmed with programming about what was acceptable, what was not acceptable in our life. And once we actually create those synaptic needs or desires, or we truly believe that we need something else outside of ourselves, buy Jif peanut butter, buy this type of soap, buy this, buy that. We need something outside of ourselves to fulfill ourselves. And that started in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. We started getting flat screens. 2000s, the flat screens don't strobe quite as badly. I think they still have the the interlace fields, the upper and lower fields, where they are interlacing when they broadcast. Yet flat screen TVs, gang, don't have vacuum tubes. So flat screen TVs are not sending out the same put your brain on hold and just get brainwashed and let those synapses become one with the TV commercial. So I want you to think why this is important. Why am I taking all the time to tell you this? Besides the fact that I'm a huge science geek and I love talking to you, gang, yay. I'm taking the time to tell you this because nothing is random in our universe. I'm taking the time to tell you this because Donald Trump grew up right in front of that television set. And his brain was being programmed with the John Waynes and all of the big heroes that had the big, car chases and the Steve McQueens and the don't ever compromise and kick butt and take names. And that synaptic pattern was being emblazed in a growing young mind, along with millions of other men who were boys, along with millions of other women who were young girls watching the hero swipe in and save the damsel. So all of these women in that same baby boomer generation who were imprinted, brainwashed, had their synaptic patterns literally augmented by sitting in front of a giant electromagnet that put their brain into a theta wave state and fed them signals about what it was to be alive. They were programmed, all those women, that their value was external and they were only of value if someone saved them. And they were only of value if their boobs were high enough and their face was tight enough and they made good enough lunches for their children. I mean, you guys. Whoa. Are you following me here? This isn't about Donald Trump and this current White House. This is about a consciousness that we started programming in the 30s and 40s, and it's just been going strong. And this is about the choices that we make right now in 2018 and beyond to move ourselves past that consciousness, to become not a programmed automaton that reacts like literally like a lab rat in a maze, because that's where we've been headed, America. That's what they've been doing with us. We are so controllable if we're afraid. Fear is a tremendous crowd control mechanism. Discrediting people because they're outside the box. Shame is an amazing crowd control mechanism. In 2018, 19, and beyond, I ask you today to give away your shame. Give away your shame. Shame is an energy signature that does not support. It just does not support growth. It serves no other purpose except to shut somebody down and to absolutely take away forward momentum. Shame seeks to suppress. That is its only energetic job. And look how much shame we broadcast through those TV commercials back in the day. Now, if you're listening to this going, well, wait a minute. That means that all the Gen X and the baby boomers and some of the 30-somethings are going to be programmed differently than our millennials, who don't seem to have overall any drive to go make a ton of money. They're really not pushed in any one direction to buy a product. Well, duh! Guys, of course they're not, because they're sitting in front of flat screen TVs. Think about this a minute. They're not sitting there in front of a giant electromagnetic brainwash box that reprograms literally the neural net of your mind. They're watching flat screens. They're watching handheld devices. Okay? So are you following the logic here? Of course our millennials are not coming in believing that their external value is on money or what they look like or what they do. What do the millennials care about? Their world is interconnected through Instagram, through Twitter. Some of them are on Facebook. That seems to be more of a realm for we oldies like myself. We middle-agers, we hang in the Facebook zone, although I love Instagram because everybody's so happy. Yet think about this just a minute. Those millennials haven't been brainwashed, literally, by the big electromagnetic talking box. So their sense of value in the world, their sense of community in the world is connection, because they are on social media, because they do text billions of people and Snapchat at one time. Their currency for their generation is connection, building community, and making the world a better place. So before we oldie pants over here want to just wag our fingers in the 20-something's face and say, you need to get off that Xbox there, kiddo, because you're just going to end up under the street eating cat food. Because isn't that what we were all told, right? You don't save for your retirement, you're going to eat cat food. Why was cat food? Why was it always cat food that was the fear tool? Was it because it smells like rotten death? Was that it? You're going to eat cat food. Be dead at 70. Got to save 401k. That's what I'm talking about. God, I swear to God, any Gen Xers or Gen Ys, that you 30-somethings, there's a group of you that really got caught between the millennial world and the old world. And so there's a lot of you 30-somethings that felt the impact of that old world very much. And so I'm going to call you guys Gen Ys because that's what you were called for a while until they renamed you millennials. I don't think that's very accurate spiritually for a lot of the, quite frankly, the road burns that you guys got coming out of that old world. So when we're thinking about all of this, you guys, and I'm giving you a lot to think about, I realize, and that's one thing about this radio show that you will notice is I don't know how to not have a dense discussion. So here it is. Yeah, when we want to look at the world in America right now and we want to blame Trump and we want to blame Steve Bannon and we want to blame the white supremacists, please understand this has been going on for years and years and years and years and years. And blame is looking in the rearview mirror. It's driving in the rearview mirror. All you're going to do is rear end the guy in front of you. It's no good. Okay? Blame and shame. We're getting rid of those in 2018 into 19 into 20 onward. Get rid of them. Blame doesn't do anything but cause you to procrastinate in bettering yourself in the world. It's true. Did you know that in spiritual physics, and I deal in spiritual physics constantly, I deal with these angels, I deal with all kinds of dynamics of spirituality and the cause and effect therein in our third dimension. And I call that spiritual physics. And in spiritual physics, did you know that the energy signature of blame is equivocal to procrastination? Think about that. I blame my mom and dad because they didn't love me enough and they didn't send me to Harvard, or I blame my sister because she got all the attention, or I blame my brother because he was the favorite child. We are simply using that excuse to procrastinate going in and bringing our gifts and talents into the world. True story, guys. You know, when I say I am a realist, it's interesting because that term in and of itself, a realist, what is that? Well, my reality is going to vary wildly from, say, the white supremacist, heavily evangelical Christian male. His reality is going to be a complete polar shift from mine. Now, when we want to sit in judgment of one another or look at 2016 and 17 and we want to blame Russia or we want to blame the Republicans or we want to blame the white supremacists, or conversely, folks who have a very conservative outlook, they want to blame all the lefties and the liberals for making America a socialist country and taking away all of our embedded, incredible, whatever you want to call it. I can't even use the word values. I was going to say values, but my brain wouldn't let me because I don't think American values are party specific. Sorry, people. I think being a good person is nonpartisan. I think being a good neighbor is nonpartisan. I think helping your fellow humans is nonpartisan. And I don't think those are American values. I think those are human values. And I think we are in a time frame where we're here to get back to human values. So how do we do that when the head of our government appears to be very self-centered and self-focused, which he is? God bless Donald Trump. He is playing this role. He is playing this role like a champion. We need that guy to get in there and be so about the self so he can reflect back to us, America, how we've been all about the self. Buy this product, buy that product. Make sure your 401k is tucked in. Look at our entire insurance industry is based on fear. You better buy this life insurance because you could get hit by a comet and your family will be destitute and all they'll have is one little crispy toenail left of you. And they can't bury you on the cost of selling your crispy toenail. So buy this life insurance. Fear. 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 This is what we are shaking off in the new world. Fear, blame, shame. These are walls that separate us from our highest good. These are walls that separate our internal spirit from our mind, from our body, and cause paralysis in the self. And then we sit and just simply get septic and icky in our paralysis. Blame, shame, and fear are old world crowd control modalities. And we don't need that anymore, gang. We don't need to be afraid. Look at our little millennials. They don't even want to interface with this old world junk we've got going out here, Gen Xers and baby boomers. You know why? Because they're like, y'all are nuts. Y'all have built these keeping up with the Joneses weirdo rat trap cul-de-sacs where your whole life is dedicated to what you look like and how much money you have and what stickers on your car. I mean, gang, listen, I'm not picking on we oldies and middle ages, okay? We got to get real with ourselves and find some humor in this. I think it's hysterical. I know that I have been intrinsically programmed to pay attention to brand names. I know that in myself. And there are certain brand names that I just really like because the styles are super cute. Yet I know that about me. I know that that was a programming issue. When I was a little kid, we did not have money. And I had no idea we didn't have money. My folks got divorced when I was about 7, 8 years old. And my mom and I moved back to Montana, and my dad stayed in Tacoma. And it just broke his heart, broke my mom's heart, but it was just one of those things, was the way it was going to go. And so my mom and I were living with my grandparents in my grandparents' basement. And I went to 4th grade. And my grandma pulled me aside because my mom had gone back to school. She was a mom, so she never finished a degree. And she might have finished a degree, come to think of it. I'm not sure if truthfully, I'll take that back. I don't know if my mom finished or didn't finish. I never asked her that question. I just figured it kind of wasn't my business. She was back in school, so maybe she was back in school to get her master's or a teaching certificate or whatnot. I want to say it was to finish her bachelor's degree. Doesn't matter. The point is, she was back in school. And I was going to school. And so my mom was not working because we were living in the basement of my grandparents' house and she was in college. And I was 8 years old. On the first day of school, my grandma pulled me over and she said to me, "Pal, I want to tell you something. You've been chosen because you're so special to receive a free lunch every single day for the rest of the school year. Now, I want to tell you something, pal. I don't want you to go and brag to the other kids how you got this free lunch, because you're going to make them feel really bad because they didn't get picked. You got picked." And I said to her, I was just amazed, like, oh my God, I just won free lunches for the whole freaking year. And I said, "Well, Grandma, how did I get picked?" And she said, "Pal, it's because they looked at all the kids and you were so special. So I don't want you telling the other kids you have a free lunch because you're going to make them feel bad. So when you go to school," we had to pick up these little tags on the desk, with your name on it and stick it in a bucket if you wanted lunch that day. She says, when you pick up the tag and you put it in the bucket, she said, don't tell anyone that it's free, because you don't want those kids to feel bad, do you? And I was such an empath as a little kid. I'm like, "No, Grandma, of course not." And she's like, "Well, now there's no need to cry about it. But you go do that for me, okay?" So I went to school with my chin high, and every day, I sat down and put that little tag in the bucket. And later figured out that I got those free lunches because the school district number 2 in Billings, Montana, assessed that my mother was unemployed and we were considered low income. And it was basically a free lunch because we couldn't afford it. So had I gone on and told kids, "Hey, I have a free lunch," and they went back home and told their parents, "Oh, Danielle Egnew has a free lunch," and then the parents said, "Oh, well, she must be low income. They must be poor. That's why she has a free lunch." And those kids would have come back and made fun of me. Well, my grandmother was a very wise lady, and she grew up very, very poor. She literally lived in a boxcar in Western Washington in a logging camp that was set atop a rail line. And her father was a logging foreman, and they would go in and log these old growth forests and put them on flatbed cars and take them down the mountain. And Grandma and her sister lived in a boxcar. So they were stinking poor. So the reason I'm talking about all this is I had no idea we didn't even have money. My grandpa built things out of wood in the garage. I had so many toys I couldn't stand it. I built things with my hands. I felt like the luckiest, most bestowed upon kid in the world. And it wasn't until junior high, when I started paying attention to brand names and whatnot, that I started to notice that we didn't have money for those Nike shoes or for those Polo products. Now, thank God, my Granny and Grandpa Charlie, they spoiled the heck out of me. They did. So they would buy me a Polo shirt or some name brand shoes or whatever. But I had one of them. I think one Christmas I got 3 Polo shirts and my head almost flew off. And I wore those things into rags for the next 4 years. So, I didn't get imprinted necessarily with that you don't have enough. Because even though my brain had been washed by all the 70s TV that told me I needed everything, I could go out in the garage and make anything. So my idea of consumerism was creation. That's how my little psyche translated that as a kid. I'm a huge minority in that. Most of us were just programmed that we don't have enough, and period, we don't have enough, and tough cookies, buddy. There you go. So when we want to shake our fist at Donald Trump and with the Russia investigation and all these things, why don't we just calmly go to the mirror and take a breath in and look ourselves really in the eyes in the mirror? Have you ever tried doing that? It's kind of freaky. It's disconcerting. Yet really hold eye contact with yourself and try to find in yourself that part of you that might have not listened to somebody else, might have judged somebody very harshly because they were different than you. And yes, that does mean, if you're a progressive, that does mean conservatives. If you're a conservative, that does mean progressives. Look at what Donald Trump is inspiring us all to do. He's inspiring us to look at behaviors that are not growth-oriented or group functional oriented. And why? Why is this important right now? Because we are in the time frame of the feminine. We went into the feminine time frame in December of 2012. This is an important deal. It's a big deal. This is why this is important. because the time frame of the feminine stresses everybody coming together as a group or a tribe in order to heal things. Okay, so Donald Trump is an example. He's 70. He's an example of that old world hierophant that rides in and I'm your savior. His brain was washed by the John Wayne mentality. You know, he really believes that as it's exacted itself into a form of what I can observe as energetic narcissism, that everything begins and ends with him. That was how he was trained. A lot of the gentlemen in that generation were trained that way. And he is just a poster child for that ideology. Now, there's a lot of gentlemen from that generation that are outstanding. So obviously, I'm not pigeonholing people. I am making an accurate observation out of one individual here based upon his behavior. I am just accurately recounting his behavior. And I'm talking about Mr. Trump. So if we look at him as choosing the short straw karmically to be used as a jester or a foil in karmic consciousness, that changes our view of him, doesn't it? I mean, would you really want to choose the short straw and be the giant butt of the joke? Would you want that karmically? You know, it's interesting. Donald Trump actually is an extremely old soul. I know. You're thinking, oh my God, Danielle, you've gone off the rails. No, I haven't. Listen. Donald Trump is a really, really old soul. And so is crazy old Adolf Hitler. And I'll tell you why. I want you to think about cinematic movies, okay? The people who play the villains are amazing actors. And those are the guys that go on, or the gals that go on to win the Academy Award. Sir Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. You have to have a huge depth and well of emotional resources to create a character as twisted up as Hannibal Lecter. You just do, okay? You've got to be a great actor. And in order to be a great actor, there's got to be an incredible emotional maturity there. So we're going to take Donald Trump, who just fearlessly goes out there spouting the most bizarre stuff and just wearing with pride the most abrasive behavior and the most offensive comments like ever. And his psyche doesn't even catch up as to why that's a bad idea. Because I'm not a psychologist, yet we know that there are psychological reasons that people are crafted in the shell of narcissism and sociopathic subsets. So that's a psychological issue, yet it takes a big spirit to not learn at all in that environment. Think about this and just stick to the crappy plan. So if the plan, which some of us consider crappy and others of us consider absolutely outstanding, if the plan is to go forward and be the worst villain that you possibly can and not learn from it while you're there, not recount your actions, not say, I'm sorry, not say, oh my God, I'm really off base here, and just continue to push this crazed authoritarian way of being, you've got to have a serious set of spinal column for that. Because most younger souls, given that same environment, and given all that criticism and given so many people who literally turn the energy of hatred towards them as a younger soul, that younger soul is going to back right up and go, whoa, this feels icky. I can't take it. What did I do wrong? I didn't even understand what I was doing. What did I do wrong? The old soul is going to say, yeah, you hate me. Bring it on. I signed up to play a karmic role here in which all of humanity will be transformed by these horrors in consciousness. And I'm just going to keep sticking to the plan because I've got enough spiritual depth to keep sticking to the plan. Now, I know that's really hard for a lot of people to listen to. And some of you are probably going, well, you know what? That's where I'm just going to flat disagree with you. And that's okay. Rock on with that. I'm just telling you, I get the opportunity to see inside of people. And it takes a very old soul to truly hang on to that bowl for all 8 seconds and not get bucked off and stay the villain for the whole movie. And poor Donald Trump, you guys, and I do say poor Donald Trump because that guy, because of his psychological issues, in their characterological issues, I'm not suggesting that he has dementia. He has several characterological disorders. I think that's pretty obvious. However, that psychological profile enables that spirit to just hang in there and keep doing this stuff because we haven't got the memo yet. because we're still trying to make this about Republicans and Democrats. Because we still think burning down half of the country's opinion will save us all. Because we're still buying in to the old world brainwashing coming through those radio waves and those electromagnetic fields around those TVs that tell us what to believe. Because we're still searching in the self for the mechanisms to give away fear, shame, and blame so that we can go forward and build this new world. That's what's going on. I'm not saying don't get involved in politics. Do get involved in politics. Did you know that politics are simply a reflection? They're just a mirror. They're just a reflection for our consciousness. In our country, in America, it's disgusting, but money is God. That's the God in America. Money. Who do you think is going to save you from the weather? Well, your house. Well, who pays for your house? Well, my job. Okay, well, what does your job do? Well, it gives me money and I pay my mortgage. The universe isn't going to save you. Money's going to save you. And we separate universe and money. And the sad part is prosperity follows purpose. There is no separation from universe and money, yet we have made money the power. And there are people with great characterological issues, great sociopathic problems that run the country. And it's not who you think they are. These are people way behind the scenes. These are, and I say this with respect, but it's the truth. These are the Dick Cheneys. These are the folks who run the big black ops military machines that are a shadow government that our president of the United States has no clue is even there. I reference this in terms of UFOs. For those of you that have not familiarized yourself with Dr. Stephen Greer, he's a magnificent guy. He was a trauma doctor, an ER doctor who got involved with investigating UFOs and the cover-ups that go with them. And for years and years and years, from a psychic perspective, I have seen that there's a group of like 8 to 12 people who run the world, and they really are controlling the money. So they're controlling the media, so that controls how we spend our money because it controls how we look at spending money and how we look at the world. And we can call them Illuminati or whatever. I don't think they're very illuminated. I think they're pretty sociopathic from my availability of my gift set that allows me to ping where their conscience lies in the ruination of the world. And they could care less. They could care less. They just want to make money and they want to control the resources and control the people. So why am I bringing this up? Well, when we're so mad at our government because we think that they're in control of everything, here's a little nugget that'll make you just sleep so well at night. And I say that with such sarcasm. Our Joint Chiefs of Staff have no idea where trillions, not just billions, guys, but trillions of Pentagon dollars are going. They have no clue. Our Congress, our president, no matter who is president, has no clue where trillions of Pentagon dollars are going. Because they're being funneled into these wonky black ops programs that are building separate militaries, that are building, they're modeling UFO craft is what they're doing. And one of our Joint Chiefs of Staff, when Dr. Stephen Greer brought a document that he had uncovered about these, we can call them shadow government organizations, whatever, he brought to this Joint Chief of Staff's attention, who was an admiral, that there was these cell committees or subcommittees that were dealing with UFOs and very, very highly classified reverse engineered technologies. So this admiral gets on the phone and he actually calls up the head of this cell group that's supposedly sanctioned by the government. And he says, "Hello, this is Admiral so-and-so, and I would like a full detailed report on what your cell group is all about and what you're doing with all this money." And the guy on the phone said, "Oh, yes, Admiral, we know who you are. You do not have need to know." So our Joint Chiefs of Staff, our Congress, our president, there's stuff going on in this world, in this country, that is based on maintaining the fossil fuel industry and limiting amazing, ultimate green energies to people that have nothing to do with our government. So when you want to make it all about Donald Trump why don't we make it about consciousness instead? Now, I didn't say all that to freak you out. I told you that because it's true. And we have got to go into some form of just reality and accountability. And when I say reality, again, everybody's reality is going to be a little subjective. But let's just look at what's actually going on before we cast people in the role of demon. Because when we cast someone else in the role of demon, we're trying to exorcise the demons from ourselves. This is important to hear. So we've got all this weirdo Illuminati, whatever, the far right calls it the deep state, and the far left calls it the shadow government. And really, it's just a bunch of sociopathic business people that have learned that they can control people through money and fossil fuels, and they don't want us evolving because they don't want to lose their cash flow. That's really all it is. They're humans. There's nothing mystical here. Yet it's super important to recognize this, because we can continue to demonize and give our power away through any level of horror that we choose. Yet, gang, here's the whole point of this whole broadcast today. The whole point of this is our consciousness, our neural net, our synapses in our brain, what we perceive, all of this, we are creating our world through our thought process. And they being people who have those characterological issues that produce sociopathic behavior, they can continue to manipulate the public through the fulcrum of fear. You remove that fear fulcrum, and all those trillions of dollars of shadow government or deep state or Illuminati or whatever you want to call it in your fan fiction, all of that power goes away. Are you hearing me? We remove fear from our process in viewing others who differ in opinion from us, in viewing what's going on with our global environment and our global changes. And we're going to have huge, severe global changes between now and 2020. Huge, crazy weather, big floods, big rises in the ocean. I mean, all this is going to come about in a very short amount of time. And if we can't figure out how to play nice with one another, what in the flippin' heck is the point of the human species going forward? And I don't want to believe, guys, I don't want to believe that it's time for us to all be extinct because we can't get over our big bad selves just because of some ridiculous consumer programming. I don't believe that. My heart keys into the fact that every human being is an empath. Now, some people have the psychic gift of empathy, and that's an additional scoop on the empath cone. Yet all human beings are born empaths. We Bluetooth together through the neural nets of the brain, through the electromagnetic nets, and our heart is also an electromagnetic organ that sits behind the heart chakra. So we transmit and receive not only through the mind, but through the heart. Are you getting what I'm laying down here? We are connected, all of us on this planet, which is why it is so hurtful to hear somebody spew hate language, because we can feel that. We can feel that in the dark matter that connects the quarks and the atoms from one person's body to ours. Dark matter is the big giant bolt of cloth, if you will, that just keeps winding between all matter and connects all of us. We are not separate human beings. Our gift of empathy and how we can Bluetooth as a species, even though we are so uniquely individual with our individual consciousness and our individual soul lessons. Our ability to Bluetooth as a species is studied by off-world beings because they're not made the way we are. And they think that our collective power of consciousness is so beautiful to them. So when we think about the earth going to heck in a handbasket, gang, it's not. Not unless we decide it is, then so it will be, because we are creating this world. So rather than getting freaked out about a shadow government or any weird sociopathic consciousness that's running the world that we have no, quote, control over, which again, I go back to the top of the broadcast, we have control over nothing except for how we respond to something. How about we start putting out into the world our visions for a better world? And how about if we start doing that not simply through Facebook posts, which is important because those positive messages create positive vibrations in that virtual ether sphere. And it is very important that we note that because our internet is shaping the world right now. because those are broadcast electromagnetic waves. And if I type something super angry on a keyboard, then that energy of anger is being translated into the words and into the energy and into the electricity that is running that computer, and it is being broadcast across the world on the net. So yes, it matters if you spew hatred on the net. You are polluting our ethersphere. It matters if you send love out into the net because you are cleaning up our ethersphere. So not only should we? I think we should. This is my personal opinion. I think we should really, really, really monitor what we put online, not from a sense of censorship or not speaking our mind. Yeah, we don't have to be hateful or disgusting. We don't. We can have dignity in expressing our opinion. So not only can we put love there to augment our reality, yet it's very important, gang, and I'm going to wrap up with this thought. It's very important in this time frame that we bring acts of kindness into this third dimension. We've got to use our hands. We've got to make something real in the third dimension. It's all fine and dandy to sit there and talk about how we should hug a unicorn and let's raise the vibration. And yes, we should do all these things and we should meditate for ourselves and we should have self-care. Absolutely. Yet once a month, I challenge everybody, once a month, throw a group in your local area. And it's a support group for those who want to build a world in the reflection of love. And let everybody come together as an equal group member and come up with ideas for your community that you can actually make real, that make your community a better place. Are you guys going to go clean parks together? Are you going to create a skate park for youth? Are you going to collect cans and with that money do something for youth who are homeless? Whatever it is, that action that you take with your hands, transmit the neural net and emotional and spiritual energy of care to action in the third dimension. The spiritual physics of that are intense. Yes, our thoughts create our reality, yet our actions build the new world. Yes, our thoughts create our reality, yet our actions build the new world. And everything you come forward to do in the world will begin to change the ethersphere and the spiritual physics of not just your community, but neighboring communities, because it affects vibrationally that dark matter that is attached to me and to you and to the chair and to Donald Trump and to Kim Jong-un and to the Dalai Lama and to whales in the ocean and to flowers in the sidewalk. I mean, and yes, it connects to everything. It connects to the waste in the ocean. It connects to the sludge at the bottom of the sea. We are all things. So let us remove judgment and demonization. We're not going to agree with everybody. Stuff people says is going to hurt our feelings. I turn on the news and just think, oh my God, when are we going to be done with this consciousness lesson? Come on, America. Let's get it together. Let's stop hating the government. Let's stop hating political parties. If you want to run for office, do so. Yet understand that political service was never supposed to be a career, guys. It was supposed to be a duty, like mowing the lawn or taking out the garbage or serving in the Senate. Or jury duty. It was supposed to be something you did to better your world and your community that was a shared duty. Remember that. I ran for mayor in my town of Billings, Montana. Montana is actually a purple state, though it shows up culturally, it's a purple state, although it shows up on election maps as a deep red state. That's just not actually an actual reflection of the people here. So when I ran for mayor, I'm obviously a gay woman who is a psychic running for mayor in a pretty darn conservative town that's the biggest city in 2 states. And there's a big old money stronghold here in Billings. But I stepped up anyway. And it changed the culture of the election. Change your culture. Change our lives. Love yourself. I love you. And I hope you love you as much as I love you and even more. Go love on your families. Thank you for joining me on inPsight today. And we are going to have so much fun on this show. Next podcast is going to be all about what's going on dimensionally with government and our UFO phenomenon. Everybody take care, love on one another, and remember, your thoughts devise the consciousness of the world, yet our hands build the new world to come. Take care, everybody.